reading the story?
Yes.
About time, huh?
Yes.
Today's story is the legend of the teddy bear. Thank you all for coming out to see it here at Jerusalem Mill. Yes, look at those teddy bears. And the story starts a while back, in the days when America was a younger country and much of the land was filled with dense green forest. Animals roamed freely through the great American wilderness. In the cities, the clip-clop of horses' feet could be heard as they pulled black buggies through bustling streets. Smoking black trains rolled across the countryside, connecting cities and towns to prairies and forests, moving travelers across the wild territories of America. In those days, there lived a strong, adventurous man with a big, bushy mustache. He was the President of the United States, and his name was Theodore Roosevelt. The people of America adored their president, and fondly called him Teddy.
I see that thing one time.
Yeah?
Yeah, I knew that picture. I saw it.
You saw it fall down.
I saw that.
Teddy Roosevelt loved adventures. He loved to go exploring while riding on his horse Manitou. Teddy wandered through the wooded valleys of Pennsylvania and climbed the towering peaks of the Colorado Rockies. He roamed the sweeping green prairies, marveling at nature's beauty. But one of the things Teddy loved to do the most was to camp in the wide open spaces of America and fall asleep under a blanket of 1,000 twinkling stars.
Whoa.
You know Twinkling Stars, right?
Teddy often rode on Manitou while hunting wild animals. In those days, many Americans hunted deer and bear. Teddy loved hunting too. During one trip, Teddy traveled to the states of Mississippi and Louisiana. The two states wanted this great and fair man to settle an argument about a boundary line. When his work was done, he decided to explore the green forest of Mississippi and go bear hunting. What's going to happen? Late in the day on November 14th, 1902, as the sun was setting, some of the men in the president's group cornered a young bear. Barking dogs surrounded the frightened bear as the men roped and tied it to a tree. One of the men cried out, "President Roosevelt, come quick! We have a bear for you!" Branches cracked and twigs snapped as President Roosevelt raced Manitou through the dark, thick forest. Hearing the excited voices of his men, he reached the clearing where the men and barking dogs were gathered. All were pointing at a bear that had been roped and tied to a tree. The frightened bear clawed at the rope, trying to free itself. The bear whipped his head back and forth, its back feet kicking up clouds of dust and dirt.
No! No!
Teddy looked down at his rifle and then laid it on the ground. He laid his rifle on the ground. He shouted out to his men, "Stop badgering that bear! It's helpless! Let it go!" Following the president's orders, the men cut the rope and let the bear go free. A few days later, a newspaper cartoonist named Clifford Berryman heard about the president's meeting with the bear. He drew a cartoon illustrating President Roosevelt and a wild bear. The cartoon first appeared in a newspaper called The Washington Post. People everywhere were talking about how the president had ordered his men to let a wild bear go free. Soon the cartoon appeared in newspapers all across the country. People from New York to Michigan to California saw the cartoon and read about Teddy's kindness toward the defenseless bear. The nation's love for their president grew stronger. No, there's more to it. A couple from New York, Rose and Morris Mictum, saw the cartoon while reading their morning newspaper, and like so many other people of America, were touched by what President Roosevelt had done. Rose and Morris owned a candy shop. They loved having children visit their shop. Big glass jars stuffed full of brightly colored candy lined the shelves. The smell of peppermint and lemon drops and licorice sticks filled the air. There were shelves with porcelain dolls, shelves with wooden toy soldiers, and shelves with wind-up toy trains. And that's the Mictums. And this is Mrs. Mictum,
Nice to
here with us today. Rose and Morris talked about their president's kindness as they started to open the candy shop that morning. As they talked about the bear in the cartoon, an idea for a new toy was born. Rose and Morris thought children might like a soft, cuddly toy, something a child could squeeze and hug while drifting off to sleep. They decided to make a stuffed toy bear. Rose and Morris both agreed that a soft, furry material the color of golden honey would be perfect. Morris skillfully cut out the pattern for each little limb and paw. He cut out patterns in the shape of a bear's head and body, and then handed them to Rose. Rose always enjoyed sewing and sat quietly humming as she sewed the pieces together. She tenderly filled each part with fluffy stuffing. Each limb was attached to the body with a special metal wheel that was hidden under the golden fur. Just like a real bear, the toy bear's legs could move. Rose gently held the little bear's paw as she checked to see that each little limb moved up and down and all the way around. And this is a picture. You don't need pictures anymore because you got the real thing.
Here we go. And this is how he came to be. But wait a minute, he doesn't have a name yet.
Next, Rose used shiny black boot buttons for the eyes as she delicately sewed black thread into the honey fur, forming a little nose and a mouth. Rose's eyes sparkled just like the boot buttons of her new little bear. Rose nuzzled her face against the golden honey fur and thought, "You, little bear, will make a child very, very happy." The next morning, Rose awoke early and began to make another toy bear. As she sat touching the soft fur, Rose imagined how wonderful it would be if all the children in the world could have their own special bears. Rose and Morris excitedly placed the two stuffed bears in the front window of their candy shop. They smiled proudly at their two golden-colored bears as people passing by stopped and admired the new creation. The little bears didn't sit very long in the window. Before the end of the day, both bears had a new home with these nice young girls. While Morris was closing up the candy store that evening, he suddenly realized they needed a name for their toy bears. What would be a good name? Teddy's Bear, he thought. Morris wondered if their adventurous president would mind if they named their toy bear as Teddy's Bear. Morris thought the proper thing to do would be to ask the president if he minded. So he decided to write him a letter. In the letter, Morris told the president how Mr. Berryman's cartoon had inspired him and his wife to create two toy bears and how the children loved them. Morris told him how they were going to make more soft, cuddly bears, but they needed a name for them. Morris asked the president if they could use his name. While Morris was waiting for a reply, while Morris was writing the letter, Rose began making another bear to escort the letter to the White House. Stitch by stitch, Rose carefully sewed the bear. While she was stitching the little bear, Morris thought of something. "Rose, I believe our little messenger should dress up for such an important trip." Morris thought a vest would be very proper for a White House visit, and Rose agreed. Rose cut out and sewed a little leather vest. Next, she slipped the fancy vest onto the bear's little body. Then she fastened a small gold chain from one vest pocket to a buttonhole. It looked like their bear was wearing a pocket watch just like President Roosevelt. Now the little bear looked ready for the White House. Their hearts and minds filled with excitement as they gingerly placed the letter and bear into a box. Rose and Morris addressed the package to President Theodore Roosevelt, the White House, Washington, D.C. Rose and Morris worried that a busy man like the President of the United States wouldn't have time to answer a letter about a toy bear. Day after day, week after week, Rose and Morris waited for a reply. They eagerly searched their mail for a letter from the President. Finally, one day, they received an envelope from the White House. Morris's hands trembled as he opened the envelope. Rose's heart pounded. Inside, they found a handwritten letter from President Theodore Roosevelt. Nervously, Morris read the letter out loud. Dear Mr. and Mrs. Mictum, I warmly thank you for your letter and the fine stuffed bear you made. I can hardly wait to show my children. However, I don't think my name is likely to be worth much in the toy bear business, but you are welcome to use it. I wish you great luck with your toy bear business. Sincerely, Theodore Roosevelt. The President loved the little bear, and he approved of the name. Thereafter, Rose and Morris proudly named each bear Teddy's Bear. It wasn't long before little girls and boys were enjoying their very first stuffed bears made with love by Rose and Morris in honor of a great president. Millions and millions of children all around the world have since held on tightly to their teddy bears. A teddy bear is a trusted, faithful, and timeless friend whose dedication is always ready and never ending. And that's the story of the legend of the teddy bear. Thank you for listening.
And the name wasn't worth very much for very long. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Please continue on through all of our buildings, and I want you to see that there's a